Hello everybody and welcome to the third edition of TobiWan Talks. This is where we go through things which are important to the community, and right now there's one thing which poked up on Reddit which is important. That's right, something on Reddit that's actually important. It's Vlant's rant on tournament organizers and the future of Pro Dota. This is a translated thing that came from his post on Telegram, so normally Valant will call it out if any of the translation is wrong. That hasn't happened, so we're assuming that it's actually right, so we're going to go off the words which have been translated. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the comments section below, and you can see it all there. I'll give you the general gist of what was said. So basically, Valant was pointing out the fact that players should start and teams should start paying for their own way. Why should organizers have to foot the bill for paying for travel, food, and accommodation, especially for a whole bunch of other things that are surrounding that? So basically, he's just calling it out, saying teams should take care of this stuff themselves. Now, I'm going to start before I go in through the intricate details of Valant's arguments into just saying that the way he wrote this is actually it's one of the founding reasons that I want to try and start making my series, where we talk about things in a rational, logical kind of way. So I'm not going to be doing emotional outbursts. I'm not going to get emotionally invested from one side or the other. We're going to look at this as a whole. Valant, however, didn't do that. So no surprise that it is labeled as warning controversial in very bold letters in this, because it's the way you actually say, using phrasing like what the fuck is happening doesn't really help when organizers now want to say, okay, should we actually listen to this as good advice? So let's actually just break it down ourselves. So first, I'm going to also, secondly, I'm also going to give a little bit of credit to Red Eye. This actually popped up while I was over in Hamburg, and I kind of like had a little bit of a giggle at the fact that it actually happened. And Red Eye, of course, then and I started to talk about a couple of things. So some of these things already, I'm going to say, influenced by Red Eye's opinions as well. So let's actually start with the history of everything. So organizers paying for things. History, why do they actually do it? Now, you can break this down to one simple thing. Esports, in a lot of ways at the very, very beginning, was all about the competitive play. A game became an esport because it was at a level where you'd say this is above, this takes a level of skill to play which is beyond that of most other sports or most other games. And this is where the esport community started to flourish, because people were like, okay, we make this competitive game, tournaments were born, and so on and so forth. Things would then be created. But what happened, and this was a fair few years ago, is esports became more of a marketing tool. So developers would come in and say, well, we're looking for a really good place where we can inspire people to play our game. And a competitive nature is always there for gamers, so it made sense that the competitive scene would be a big focus of a lot of developers. And this is actually what ended up happening. So what they ended up doing was getting the biggest brands they could possibly get to their tournaments, so it would become this show. That's what they wanted. They want to have a really cool show. And this has kind of now transitioned itself further and further as the money gets bigger and bigger, where you still need to have the biggest brands, you still need to have the biggest show. And this is where people will come and watch. And this will then give the game exposure. And you can say, okay, well, not everyone has to go by that. Not every tournament is run by developers, but it's it's just, when you say the meta, it's what was created. It's what is known, is what is standard. And what is standard is normally followed until someone shows something better. So the history kind of just leads you into seeing, like, it's esports as a marketing tool. They want to just secure the brands at their events. And this is kind of like the issue that stems from the fact that there is no one league that kind of encompasses all of this as well. So you can say, okay, well, this is a marketing thing. If you actually had a league, if it was all about the competition, if it was all about that, then sure, you could probably create an infrastructure which would work with a lot of the stuff that Valant was talking about. But we're not at that point just yet, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So a couple of the things which he nailed on. So one of the things was the ability for teams and players to actually pay their own way. So let's just break down the financial side of this. So you think about the running costs that come in for an event. Now, you can talk about renting a stadium, you can talk about the catering costs, you can talk about how much money it costs to fly everybody in, how much money it costs to have everyone in accommodation, which is appropriate. This is a lot of money. In fact, like I remember the original TI prize pool was $1.6 million, but the running costs were closer to $3-4 million to actually do the event. And that was when the events were actually a lot smaller than what they are today. So you think about all these costs just starting to pile up. Now, an organizer will normally try and shoulder these costs. And the reason why they do this is because it's cheaper for them. So you want to secure a team at your event. Now, what you could do is say, well, we're going to then just raise our prize money. So we'll take the money from the basically the budget that allows us to pay for all of the logistics, and we'll throw this into the prize pool. So teams are guaranteed. So you imagine like a team is guaranteed $20,000 to attend an event. Now that'll be enough to pay for flights and accommodation and probably a whole bunch of other, like any kind of food they need during the event. And they'll only win money if they kind of go above that, or if they're going to be really like cheap on what they do. So you'll be up in like like a B&B, for example, as opposed to a 5-star hotel. And this is the way like they could save the money. So you can do it that way, where you just take that money and give it to the teams, or you put it into increasing your prize pool. This is not a bad way of doing it, and this is a way a lot of other places actually do it. But now you have other problems. Do you get to have media day? Like, where is the commitments? This has to be all locked in by contracts. A lot of teams probably don't sign contracts before they go to events. So now you're asking for what is a mainstream sport approach to something which is definitely not mainstream. You don't have these kind of things in place, and you can't blame the community for this, because most gaming communities only last about 8 to 10 years, and this is for a good, long community that's able to do this, unless you build up a lot of infrastructure, but this is then developer funded, or it comes from somewhere else, because you don't have these sustaining organizations which aren't linked to developers, which are able to get that much money into an early game. They just don't exist. ESL can kind of come close, but they're not a management group. They're running events. They're not managing teams. They're not doing all this jazz. So, they'll try and run their leagues, but they're not the one and only. And when you're not the one and only, then you find yourself in the problem that kicks in. So you can say, okay, we're gonna give the money to the teams to do this, but they're gonna be really sad about the budget. So what do? We need to impress the teams to get them to our event. And this is what happens with money flowing in to give business class flights, or to give 5-star hotel accommodations, to give really good food at events. These are the perks that just make it so a player will go, I really like this event, I want to come back. One of the greatest examples of this in the early days was actually Beyond the Summit with the Summit. So what they did is they really looked after players. Like, they went above and beyond the Call of Duty. So while Eternal Envy was asking for his private toilet over at ESL 1, what did BTS do? They made sure the players always had computers. You got gamers who are addicted to a game. What do? You say, you can always play your game. You give them good food, it's rotated in all the time, as opposed to what we had at Frankfurt, which is where Envy was complaining, where you basically have the German basic cuisine, which was basically just sausages. It really wasn't great food the first time around. So these are things which changed over time, but the lesson you learn from it is still good, and that is the fact that tournament organizers will always want to make sure that the experience is enjoyable, so the players will want to come back. This means they don't have to invest as much into time to convince a team to come to their event. Maybe the prize pool doesn't have to be as much. The summit was what, 75,000, and then the extra stuff which came in from chess. That's fantastic, but teams would still come back because they enjoyed the environment, they enjoyed the mood, and they'll keep coming back because of that legacy that was created then. So most organizers try and create that legacy. Epicenter tried to do it with a large amount of money, giving kittens in rooms and whatever. They tried to make it so teams would instantly come in, and then this is a point where Volant is actually right. It became a pissing contest. Everybody wanted to see who could raise the bar just that little bit higher, and that's what actually ended up happening. Everyone tried to one-up each other to get people to come to their events. Now, eventually, the money started running dry. Even Epicenter backed off a little bit for what they were doing as well. So what do you then move back into? It's that quality experience that the players want to have, which will give them the reasons to turn up. And you can then say, okay, this comes from like buying nice things. Another point which Vlad was making. So like you end up giving like shirts or shoes, like the Converse brand and things like this. Now, you could give someone a Mercedes-Benz, for example. These are the type of things which will attract players to come because it sets the tournament apart from just being a basic thing. And this is what separates it apart for them, not everyone else. And we're not going to actually really go into broadcasting and making a tournament being the greatest it can ever be. That's not what we're talking about in this one. We're focusing on exactly what the teams benefit and the reason why they would decide to come to a tournament. Now, Vlad's answer is, come on, they're playing for millions of dollars or $1 million at a tournament. And why are we having to foot the bill? Because someone would qualify in a normal sport and then it's up to them to turn up. And in a lot of regards, you're actually right. But in a lot of other ways, you get rewarded for already having success. So the teams that qualify, yeah, they have to work hard, but the teams in normal sports who actually have success already have the money to either fund their next event or they get on board with other sponsors that exist. So you have support structure still there, which makes travel easier. And these established team brands, which have been out for a while, are able to pick up sponsorship. Who knows? Maybe you can have a sponsorship coming in from KLM, which will fly you to different parts of the world, and a team sponsorship. This is like they'll have KLM printed on their jersey, and this will make it so they can fly anywhere in the world for free with their team. These type of sponsorships will be very sought after if this becomes a thing, because then they save the money which they would earn from the prize pool, and the prize pool is raised because the money is taken away from the logistics budget. This is stuff which could be possible. But you need to have good management to do this, and it also gives a lot of advantage to the upper teams who keep winning, who have good branding, who have these sponsors locked in, and makes it a lot harder for newcomers to kick in, which everyone will have a knee-jerk reaction to because everybody wants the new guy to be able to succeed. You think these type of resources are going to be open to like teams coming in from Brazil? That's not the way it's going to work. And in Dota, at least, it's not going to happen that way either, because everything that Valve has done with this new minor and major system and everything in the past is all about giving more opportunities to every single team that's out there. They love it when a team comes through the open qualifiers and fights their way up, especially if they come in from an area you don't really know about as well. It's like, oh my god, a team from Brazil has just won the international, would be the greatest storyline they could ever imagine. But this would get shut down if this type of thing gets in place. And this is kind of where I will now go to my next point, where you can have club funding, you can have all of this. It's very, very top-heavy. Esports isn't like that. And the primary reason is still, remember, most of the budget that comes out is still marketing. I'll remember what Eric Johnson told me when we first talked about like $1.6 million and the international one. And the reason why they did it was because why would I spend $3 million on putting up a couple of banners down the road that people might be able to see, but they'll forget, when I could just put $3 million into something which can become a legacy like the international. So keep in mind, even the international was still originally a marketing campaign, but also a gift to the community. So it was a great concept from both sides. Now, this means that even a system like a system where organizers start shifting money out from logistics and all that kind of jazz, it's not going to fly with Valve. Valve will protect the lower tier teams. They will not let it get high end, where only the big organizations are able to survive. This is the reason why they fly in a coach as well as a manager into the international. But then you can also pull back a little bit on this as well, right? Because you need the players and you need someone that can keep the players in order. That's manager as well as players. That's all you really need. Anything else on top of that becomes a team perk and should actually be on the team organizers to, like the team managers, to actually take care of. So if we want to have a personal trainer, if we want to have Chef Josh like Complexity has, if you want to have a physiotherapist, like if you want to have this type of stuff, then it should be on the team organization to pay for this. It shouldn't be on the organizers to pay for that. So on this front, I actually agree with Vlad that it makes sense that a lot of the extra perks that these teams are used to getting shouldn't always be provided. Now, if they want it, that should be catered for, that they want to have these extra things. That is fine. But it shouldn't be a requirement of the organizer to pay for it. Tournaments already having a hard enough time breaking even when they run events. So why do you want to add more pressure on this? The whole idea, and the idea behind my last video that I also made up talking about, like, where does the money go? A lot of the money is currently being taken away from these running costs that come to events to be shoved into the prize pool in order to be a major or a minor. So these things have to be balanced out better. Over time, this will change. It won't come drastically, and a lot of it won't actually come ever, because esports is still evolving. Esports is still a very hybrid kind of thing between competitive games as well as a marketing tool. So the two worlds kind of have to come a little bit closer. Team owners need to also give a lot more support to their teams and do it where they're actually paying for it. But then you have the other flip side of players are still asking for a hell of a lot to be part of a team, and when they don't, they'll go and make Team Secret or OG. So it's difficult for already established team brands to do this without ensuring they can give something back, or get something back. And when prize money is taken away from you, when the sponsorship money, like the teams are demanding like 50% cut on any sponsorship which is brought up, this will cause you problems and make it very difficult to actually pay for all these extra things that the team already is used to. And it's hard to say, like, I'm going to take this money away from you in order to pay for the stuff which you're already getting. A player will not understand this. And a player who lives for the now and not for the future most of the time, especially because they're so young, they don't understand what brand value in the future is really going to mean to them. So there's a lot of growing pains to come up. In the TLDR version of this entire thing, Vlad has a couple of good points that organizers shouldn't be footing the bill for everything, but you can't actually just expect an instant kickback and say, well, these guys are, like, players are flaming the shit out of us. Why is this happening? This is unfair towards tournament organizers. Organizers, they foot the bill for now until they find a better solution, and they can't just expect players to not react negatively when negative things happen to them. This is going to happen. The only thing which can change in the future is players react negatively to their own team management, who is in charge of all of this, who should be looking out to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. But this is professionalism, this is growing pains, and we are still a pro-am circuit. We are not a full professional circuit yet. We have a lot more infrastructure to grow before that can actually be the case. So for now, you're going to have problems. In the future, these problems can be addressed, but this is the reason why we start talking about them now, and we look forward to actually building this stuff in the future, and not just saying, I want it now, because that type of attitude is, in fact, as Vlad said, very kindergartenish kind of style. And Vlad, well, he kind of went for that. So I don't agree with the way Vlad brought this forward. At the same time, though, I do think it's some good talking points to bring out of the conversation anyway. So, hope you enjoyed this. I'll do more of these videos too. Hopefully you'll enjoy not having my camera going completely in and out of focus all the time. My audio being a lot clearer. I'm still traveling. I'll be over in London for the next week. So I may do a couple more videos from there, but I will do it back on my phone. So the audio is going to get shit again. The highlight video is coming up sometime very, very soon. And more things are also coming your way. So hopefully you enjoy the content I'm making on my YouTube channel, so subscribe, like, share, you know the jazz, you know what to do. If you got to this far of the video and you're still listening to this shit, then yeah, you are one of those guys that actually support what I do. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll keep making these videos, so keep giving me content to talk about, and I'll see you next time.